Is with us this morning to try and sift through to find the nuggets of gold. Sarah, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I think there were some nuggets of gold, Ger, actually. I enjoyed Páirc Uí Chaoimh yesterday, despite the fact that Cork were losing for the majority until the 63rd minute, when Cormac Bosan got the goal. Wexford were going to always react after that pummeling that they took from Clare. So I suppose there was a bit of naivety on Cork's part. They started really slowly. They were overpassing the ball. I remember a few weeks ago I was talking to you about Kilkenny and how, I suppose, unlike Kilkenny, they were against Tipperary. Indecisive, poor decision making. Cork were like that yesterday in the first half.
And before we get on to Wexford, because I know there's definitely bits there that we need to talk about, what do you think was the reason for that?
Again, a shuffle of the deck, new players in. Padraig Power was in full forward, really liked the look of him. Cormac Bosan came on and got the goal at the end to win it. Last week, Pat Ryan sent his players back to the clubs. And I know that Paul Murphy and James Skehill were wondering last week on the hurling pod whether was it to do with a kind of a backlog and were Cork trying to be helped out. But I think Pat Ryan was looking to give his players a bit of confidence, having done a training block. And it worked out because Cormac Bosan scored 112 last week for Middleton in their win over Bishopstown. And he comes on yesterday fresh and he's barely on the pitch and he gets the goal. And I think that's the difference in Cork this year, that Pat is able to tweak the players and give them confidence week on, week on.
Wasn't easy against that Wexford defensive setup either, Sarah. Like, you look at Diarmuid O'Keefe and Cal Dunbar being used as sweepers. Is it good to watch?
It was very, very congested. Matthew O'Hanlon was back there as well. I think if Matthew O'Hanlon hadn't gone off injured, I don't know if Cork would have got the goal because there was so much little space inside there. But having shipped 625 against Clare, Wexford were always going to do something a little different, and it worked for them for the majority.
Yeah, I think from their perspective, okay, they lose the game and it's a late goal that catches them. They're going to feel a little bit happier about this defeat than they did about the Clare one. So the reports of their demise have been greatly exaggerated.
Oh, well, I'd look. Chin returns yesterday, and Lee Chin gave an exhibition yesterday. He ghosted around that field. Some of the free taking was sublime, and some of his points from play, real pressure situations. The issue was that Cork actually couldn't get a handle on him. So Cork obviously were trying to hold their structure. Kieran Joyce was trying to sit at 6, and it was just I'd say the energy that he took trying to get people to pick Chin up, because Chin kept dropping off and coming back in, a bit like Tony Kelly. And it showed on the scoreboard. Chin, he ran the show for Wexford.
So are Wexford feeling, notwithstanding the fact that the psychological blow at the end of the game, are they feeling pretty good about life in the aftermath of this, that they got their players back, they had a defined pattern of play, and so we're sifting for gold here, come the Leinster round robin, because I think we were all assuming that they were going to be fodder if the Clare form was a form line. That's not the case, and nobody's going to look forward to facing them.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think Dublin Kilkenny, which we'll get on to later, I think that Wexford have the measure of Kilkenny, and I think they'd fancy themselves against Dublin playing the way they played against Cork yesterday. So they've certainly shifted the mindset in terms of what they can do in the Leinster Championship this year. The All-Ireland Championship's a different scenario, but certainly I think from a Leinster Championship point of view, they'll be much happier after this game than they were, say, 2 weeks ago. But 4 injuries again yesterday. Conor McDonald have to go off as well. They're having no luck with injuries. None whatsoever.
Well, we'll wait and see what the bulletin is like in terms of the prognosis for it. I know Davy Fitzgerald in the aftermath of the Waterford game was talking about the series of injuries that they have and how the hamstrings are likely to keep players out of at least the opening rounds and potential rounds of Munster. So their defeat to Tipperary wasn't just on the scoreboard, it was psychological as well.
Yeah, I think Nash spoke last week about getting goals, and they did. Jake Morris, a great hat-trick. But you know what? He's coming off the end of some great running from the likes of Dan McCormack, real clever play from the likes of Bonner Marr. The Tips' intelligence off the ball and their willingness to break the line and their off the ball, off the shoulder running sets them apart, and Waterford didn't have an answer for that on Saturday night.
You mentioned Kilkenny, Sarah. Was it it appeared to be a disappointing Dublin performance? They kind of maybe didn't do themselves justice in that game.
Yeah, they had some bright shoots. Obviously, Donald Burke scored 11 points, and some of his scores were outstanding. Cian Boland had some great late scores. Paul Crummy got a great goal. But structurally, it looked like men against boys. And I think we spoke about a couple of weeks ago about Dublin needing to put on that bulk. And the Kilkenny players that have come back in, like lads, Owen Cody 2 years ago did not look like the man that he is now. Like, he's put on that bulk, and he was in corner forward yesterday, and his positioning, he made those 2 goals that he got yesterday look really easy, but his positioning is top class, and he ends up with 2-2, a real statement of intent for the new Kilkenny captain.
I was sticking with Kilkenny then for a while. We were wondering how long it was going to take, and I think that we'll decide after the round robin what kind of a job Derek Lyng is doing. But in terms of that sense of evolution, you're beginning to see some stuff. And I guess, in fairness to him, he hasn't had the full deck to deal with for much of the campaign, and still doesn't have the full deck.
Yeah, I like Richie Reid coming back in made a massive difference, and I was wondering whether Padraig Walsh would survive if Reid comes back in. But Walsh yesterday was class, so I think there's definitely a place for both of them in the team. Whereas last year Cody didn't have a place for Walsh, so certainly very interested to see how Lyng is using Walsh this year. Outside of that, Drennan, Billy Ryan, John Donnelly. Like, John Donnelly was probably playing the role that TJ Reid will inevitably play. So Lyng certainly can be very happy with yesterday's performance, and much crisper delivery of the pass, much quicker delivery of the pass. They just look very workmanlike yesterday, and their general play was very clean.
The speed at which the games are being played at the moment, and the pitches they're being played on, and just the general weather, like the weather at the end of April, not great either. The weather in May can be good, can be bad. Like the traditional summer hurling championship fair, Munster hurling that we would have traditionally associated with the All-Ireland Championship, you have to get through a slog of pitches and still be good when the weather picks up. It's kind of a weird season now.
It is, and yesterday there was a real struggle on both sides, Cork and Wexford. The conditions were very, very tough, and a couple of complaints about the slitter as well. I actually met Anthony Nash coming out of the pitch yesterday, and he said the slitter, now you can ask him on Friday, but like I felt the players weren't striking the slitter as well as they ordinarily would. So I think they'd have a couple of complaints about that now, having seen yesterday's performances in that wet field. And it's the teams that are able to best deal with it. And the teams that are a bit more physical, like Tip Saturday night against Waterford, are probably the teams that will do well in those kind of heavier underfoot conditions. So if you have the bulk and you have the physicality to get through April, you'll do well in May.
In Limerick, they were killing the fatted calf. The prodigal sons are back. It was against Westmeath. The definition of off-Broadway, and that's not being mean to Westmeath, but in the second half, Westmeath actually put in a great performance, and they drew the second half. But obviously the game was well out of reach in the first half. But Aaron Gillane is back. A couple of other players coming back from injury, and everything seems to be now pointing towards them having a full deck to deal with come summer.
Yeah, well, Diarmuid Burns was back in yesterday, scored 2 points from wing back, very comfortable, was taken off, but that wasn't because he was playing badly or anything. Gillane got his score late on. Shane, you'll be delighted. It was a volley. It wasn't a half volley. No,
definite
it was a volley.
Yeah.
It was a definite volley. But a bit of showboating out of him. I liked it. He said, I'm back. And I think Limerick need that. I missed him for the last few games, but as I said to you earlier, Seamus Flanagan definitely missed him. His scoring averages were way down, so it'll be interesting to see now how he plugs back in and whether he'll be used fully in the last game.
Yeah, I mean, like at training in Limerick, it's going to be fairly savage, given they have got a bunch of young players who are on the fringes of the team, as opposed to in previous years they might have been on the fringes of the panel.
Yeah, like if you look at the likes of Shane O'Brien, Donal O'Dowlig, Adam English, and now they're going head to head with the likes of Gillane, Cian Lynch, Seamus Flanagan. I would love to be on that sideline watching that training session, because there will be skin and hair flying, no doubt, because those boys aren't going to let the young lads come in and steal their thunder. It's killer. For
me, that was the big story of the weekend, to be honest. Like, notwithstanding the fact that Wexford are actually, again, and it'll be interesting to see in Will's power rankings what the changes are, but that Limerick, we need to get worried about this.
Yeah, but I said the only thing that'll stop Limerick is themselves and that discipline. And if you look at Waterford on Saturday night, Jamie Barron gets sent off. They've had a red card, I think, in every game, bar one where there was 2 yellows, but they've essentially lost a player and played without a player in every game. And they were very efficient against Tipperary in the first, say, 40, 50 minutes. But if they keep, if their discipline pulls players out of the game and makes them weaker, I think Limerick could have the same issue. Like that's the only thing that's going to catch them is their discipline. And the sending off of Kyle Hayes impacted them against Westmeath, nothing. But it could have a big impact down the line in a Munster Championship game if they lose a player. And I think that's the only way that Limerick can be caught.
Yeah. All right, Sarah, we'll leave it there for now. Good stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks, guys.
That's Sarah Donovan giving us a reflection on the weekend's hurling.